and welcome to Hello Yellow. This is a program that's all about finding opportunity through adversity, and we are in the greatest of company with Leah Akoka, founder of Wall Street, now moving into a whole other environment, repositioning herself in a way that nobody else has done before. Please join me in welcoming Leah to the program. Welcome, Leah. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
So tell us a little bit about how Wall Street started and then what we're now doing with the business and the brand.
Wall Street started 23 years ago now, I think. About
showing your age.
Years ago. Let's not talk about that. Started 23 years ago as the people side of Dodo Internet. So
the internet that flew?
The internet that flies very fast. Well, flew very fast. I don't know now because now it's not ours, so I don't know what it does now. But then it was fast. We started in the days of dial-up, so it was a long time. Larry Kesselman, the founder of Dodo Internet, is also a good friend of mine, and we've known each other for a very long time. And we bumped into each other on St Kilda Road, and he had started Dodo, and I was then working for an IT service provider. And, and he needed people, and that's how it started. And then he gave me an offer I couldn't refuse, and I started Wall Street and providing people and managing people and hiring the people and training the people. And we grew 5 people, 10 people, 20 people, 50 people, hundreds of people. And
that's a lot of people.
It's a lot of people. It's a lot of people. We learned things we didn't know we needed to know. You know, it was an amazing experience, extremely steep learning curve. My expertise is, so I talk about people, but where does it sit? So I'm a master practitioner in NLP.
For those people who don't understand neuro-linguistic programming, see how good am I?
It's very
NLP
good.
Was. Yeah.
It's very good. Neuro-linguistic programming, yes, that's what it is. And just to explain what that is to people who don't know, it's basically a methodology that says if you understand how the brain is programmed, you understand how to better communicate with the brain. So with people, obviously. So it's understanding the fundamental things that it takes to program us. Culture, upbringing, the way we sit, the way we talk, the way we act. And if you understand that, you then understand how to better get your message across. So that's my foundation. I was very lucky to learn that. And my background before that was sales. And I did sales management and sales training and became the master practitioner through that process. And then I also have an incredible interest in behavioural economics. So the two, taking the two together, that's my shtick.
The people economics.
People economics was born.
So I want to get to people economics because it's so intriguing to me. But talk to me about behavioural economics. What does that mean?
Well, behavioural economics actually is very new. It was founded by a gentleman with the name of Danny Kahneman, and he won a Nobel Prize on his founding of behavioural economics. So basically he proved that behaviour had a lot to do with the economic effect, whereas previously it was everything else, all the other
more linear
approach, which was, the financial and all of the other impacts that were more a spreadsheet kind of impacts, not behavioural impacts. And he's got both backgrounds in the spreadsheet as well as with psychology. And he took the two together, and he basically proved that behaviour had a massive impact on the economy.
And give me an example of what that would look like. So what's a highly productive behavioural economic person do?
Well, it doesn't quite work like that.
Okay.
But basically what you're saying is what it's looking at is it's a lot of experiments. It's experiments saying, if we do this, how does that affect behaviour? How does that also affect the outcome? So lots of different experiments, and he's written books on it and conducted lots of experiments to say, an example of one experiment would be one where people were given an exercise to do and drawing a picture. And again, my memory's hazy. You didn't get me to prepare on this.
No, I did.
So I've got to remember all of this now. Draw a picture, and if there would be a group of people where the picture would be judged in front of the person, and the speed of which this picture was drawn would then be affected by the judging. So would you say that if the person was judged straight away, would the speed be faster or not? So it's basically looking at all the different outcomes based on the condition. And the condition could be, that I've looked at your picture and then I've told you that it's crap and I've thrown it out. How does that affect your next picture? All of those things. And that's just one example, but there's many different experiments he made. And ultimately, it proved that the behaviour was very hard to predict, because human behaviour, as we know, is very hard to predict. But the things that affected it were surprisingly the opposite than what we'd think, or the traditional thinking would be. So, and that's why he kind of turned the model upside down, which is why he won the Nobel Prize for it.
That's amazing.
And he came up with a totally new subject at university that wasn't there before.
Which was?
Behavioural economics.
Wow.
It wasn't
so we can
there
go and
before.
study that if we want.
You can go study that now. So, yeah, and I think it's fascinating. He's amazing, and the subject is fascinating, and ultimately a lot of the traditional psychology methodology that we have is challenged by his research.
And have you adopted any of that within your own frameworks?
Plenty, yeah. So I've adopted a combination of that and my knowledge from NLP and my own experiences and my own thought process. So I believe in simplifying everything. I believe in looking and drilling down until you get to the base and the core. And the core is, if we're talking about things, again, when you're talking about business, you're talking about the effect people have in terms of productivity, things that affect your bottom line, such as potential things like absenteeism and things like that. People usually look at the end result, not the core foundational reasons. So if you're looking at things like absenteeism, the core foundational reason for that is bad morale, ultimately. So you need to focus on the morale rather than the absenteeism. And I kind of go back to the basics, go back to the core issues and talk about how do we impact that. And if you impact that, you'll fix not just one thing, you'll fix 50 things. So, that's what it's all about.
So PeopleEconomics obviously adopts all of that, but you're actually really reinventing the way in which HR is being looked at too. So can you tell us a little bit about that? I mean, clearly it's a passion of yours. You've got so much experience in that. So talk to us a little bit about, this thought process.
Yes. So HR, let's talk about HR first, because HR is something that we were labelled because we didn't know what to call ourselves. So when I went out to the market and said, okay, we need to sell our services, and we're talking to potential customers and they're asking me, what do I do? And I tell them, well, I do people. Okay, what does that mean? Well, everything to do with people. What does that mean? So we needed to kind of find something, and one of the people we were talking to said, do you mean HR? So I thought, okay, maybe I do. I don't know. And that's when we kind of started using HR, because it was the easier thing to use. It was just easier to say HR than anything else.
Because people could relate to it more than you could relate
to it, yeah. And although that was easier, and they kind of gave us at that time a
framework or
a description,
category. Yeah.
A category, exactly. Category is probably the best way of saying. It also, I think, limited the business, because then we kind of pigeonholed into that. And then when I hired people, I realised that HR wasn't working, because HR people didn't work out for me. And I realised that it's not HR, it's commercial. It's the commercial benefits or the improvement on the productivity of the people that we can create But we're doing that not from a HR perspective. We're doing it from a commercial perspective and understanding what levers to pull to improve that. So, and then it's very it's not simple, it's complex. And I try and simplify a very complicated thing. It's very hard to explain because it's a whole lot of little things.
So as a business owner, it would be incredibly attractive to have someone like you come in and really just turn the dial up on productivity, but also understanding of the people within their community work environment. And, that for me, even as a business owner, would be something I would absolutely hang on to. And so what are some of your proof points for business owners that you would say, look, I'm going to come in, I'm going to do this? What would you be saying to them that you're going to look for in order? Is it a commercial metric? Is it what are some of these little metrics, just some tangibles that some people who might be listening going, oh, that sounds interesting, but I'm not really sure what I'm going to get from this.
Okay. So, there's different metrics, but the metrics all tell you the same thing. And the metrics tell you where your morale in your business is. And morale and culture are two different things. People kind of get those confused. Yeah, morale is about how people feel about their job, about do they want to come to work. Culture could be, great, but are you getting the result? Morale gives you the result because people want to do a good job, want to come in. Slightly different. It sometimes is good both. Great culture, great morale, but you could have a great culture, morale may not be there, which I've got many examples of businesses I start working with, because that's also very common. My customers start with good cultures, because part of what I try and do is find leaders that are like-minded to us, who want the same, who are good people, who want the best for their people, who value that morale, who value that in their people. They're not just looking at it from a productivity sake. They're looking at it from the morale makes the productivity, So ultimately what I do is I go in there and we've got a recipe for success. And that's what we put in. We'll put in our recipe. It's proven. We've done it before many times over. So we just put it into their business. It's like, I talk about it like you've got lots of people who are good at what they do, but they can't replicate it because they don't have a recipe. You can be an amazing salesperson, and generally great salespeople don't make good sales managers because they don't know why they're a great salesperson.
Yeah, they know their craft, but they don't know how to lead.
They don't know how to lead. Yeah. Or they don't know the recipe behind what makes them a good. Because you can't teach something if you don't have that process, because then you're only relying on the stars or the people with the same skills. You can't teach someone who doesn't have the skills today, but you can teach them for tomorrow. And when you scale, when you're growing a business, you can't rely on stars. You've got to rely on being able to teach the masses.
And I guess your methodology would be really relevant for businesses that rely heavily on the founders and on their skill set, on their mindset, on their values. So to scale a business from, one thought leader to many and departments, that's not an easy feat. And is that something that you've been exposed to?
Mm-hmm. Yes, we've done this several times over. But it does take the right leader, though. Many times I've had CEOs or the board or owners or founders talk to me about, can you come in and help us in our business? And looking at that business, honestly, I'd have to say to them that the only way that we can help you is if you change your leadership, because we've got to be aligned. Ultimately culture and all of that comes from leadership. It doesn't come from us. It doesn't come from me. I can help and reinforce it and put in the recipe and make sure it all works, but I can't put it in if it's not already there. It's got to be there with the right leadership. I can help you find the right leadership. I can help you tweak it, and I can help you look at the structure the business now needs because it's growing and it needs to be repotted, but ultimately it has to come from the people in the business.
So you have an incredible way to relate to people at different levels within a business. Obviously a business owner yourself, having worked in different roles and different categories and I guess different status points. What do you attribute your success to that connection and relatability through your own personal journey? Is there something that you could point to, or a myriad of things that you could point to and go, you know what, that's helped me connect and understand and know how far to push, or, you know, because I think being able to relate, to listen is a really, really big asset. You have that in spades. So I'm asking you a number of questions, so I'm sorry about that, but it's really about your experience and potentially what other people should be looking for through your experience about how to be a better human, but also a better, you know, operator and working in teams and things. Does that make sense? I've asked you a very big question.
Okay, so I'm just going to divide this question. So you either are a good human or not a good human. Okay.
End of story.
Well, you
mic drop. That's it.
Well, you are. Okay, you are. Yeah. And what happens is people pretend, and that never works. Because people are not stupid. People can tell you're pretending, and pretend. So if you're not if you don't have those characteristics in you, it's really difficult to kind of put them there or pretend. So I think that's the starting point as far as the good human component has to.
So if you're not a good human, bad luck. We're going to move to the good human discussion now. Is that right?
Well, if you're not a good human, then I don't want to deal with you.
Yes, I understand. And it comes back to a value base at the end of the day. Any partnership is only going to work if your values are somewhat aligned and the core is there. So 100%.
It's harder to deal with someone that's not a good human, because it's harder for my staff. It's harder for their staff. It just becomes it's not good. We've done it. I've done it many times over at the beginning when I had to, and today I don't have to anymore, and I don't want to. So if I'm going to give any advice to anybody going forward, I think it's more important the client you choose than the client that chooses you. You know, and I think that's how you become who you are. And I've made plenty of those mistakes, and I'm not saying I'm still making plenty, but it is important that you choose your clients wisely.
And what's, you know, an example of a client that you've had that has taught you the most about this particular topic? I mean, you don't have to obviously tell us who the client was, but what was the learning through all of that? And is it, I mean, I have to say in my experiences, we had a litmus test. If they're ringing and you don't want to answer the phone, then that means it's not right for this partnership. So that was my example. Did you have any examples that then taught you exactly that no is much more powerful than a yes when it's not going to work in the long term? Yeah.
Yes, I have plenty of those examples. Generally, I think when we talk about good human, it's a broad comment, but ultimately the leaders that you want are leaders that are humble, that are leaders that look inward and look at what can I do, and leaders that aren't driven by their ego, so they're not blaming others for mistakes. And you've got leaders who will blame people when things go wrong, but take the credit when things go right.
They're my favourites.
Yes, you know those. So ultimately, when we talk about the good human and the bad human, well, these are examples of what we're talking about. And it's a really difficult, you can't, as I said to you, the difference we can make is by ensuring that the morale in an organisation is good. But you can't create morale with a bad human leading the business. You just can't, you know, and it's impossible. So what you can do is you can put in processes, you can make, but it's you know, it's taking something that's, you know,
yellow and trying to turn it green.
Yeah, exactly. You know, or there's a good Russian saying is you can take, you can't turn crap into a lolly. It's if you translate it literally, it means if it's crap, it's crap.
Call a spade a spade.
Exactly.
So you've lived a very full life already, Leah. You're a mother. I don't know much about your personal life, to be honest, which we don't need to really go into unless you're comfortable with it. But, you know, you're a mother, you're married, successful business and constantly iterating to be better. How do you manage to do the juggle? And I ask this of many guests. You know, it's not easy being a woman, and that's not that I'm on a feminist route, but, you know, you do hold a lot of buckets, and how do you keep them sort of half full all of the time? What's your secret to success?
I don't think it's a secret. I just think you just get up and do. I mean, that's what I've always done. But I remember I had my daughter, I was young. I was 25. When I had Hannah, she's 27 now. And And I was separated with my first husband when I was 6 months pregnant with her.
Wow.
So, it was difficult. It was very difficult. I left a really good job. I was doing really, really well. And all of a sudden, overnight, I'm back at my parents' house and with a newborn. I lost my company car. And it was just like, okay, what do we do now? And I think Hannah was about 4 weeks old when I'm sitting in the living room crying. And my mother walks in, what's wrong? And I said to her, what did I do to my life? I had such a good life. And I don't know, what did I do? Like, when do I wake up naturally? I asked her. I said, when is it that I, again, will be able to wake up because I want to wake up?
Yeah, not because your boobs are hurting or because the baby's crying. Whatever.
When do you just do it? And she just looked at me like, what are you talking about? And she's like, oh, never.
Did you not get that memo the minute you were pregnant? Oh, God, sorry.
I was talking about, like, it's not going to happen. And it was funny because I was like, oh, really? Okay. And it was really a time where, and I remember when I was pregnant thinking, how am I going to do this whole 6 a.m. wake up? I'm not a morning person. So how am I going to do that? Like, how do people do this? How do people do this and this and this and this? And you learn very quickly that when you have no choice, you do. You have no choice. Baby's crying. And don't get me wrong. I mean, I was not, at 25, I was not a really great mother. Like, my mum, we literally moved into the living room of my parents' house. And Hannah would be crying. And her cot was next to my bed. And my mother would wake me up going, the baby crying. The baby crying. And I'd be like, oh, the baby crying.
Do I have a baby? Sure, I forgot about that.
But you learn, you learn, you do what you have to do. You get up, you soldier on, and next, and that's what life is. And I don't know, and I talk about it with young people today. You focus on the stuff you can control. You focus on the stuff that you can't deal with out there, but you can fix in here. And that's what you do. You fix what is in your control, which is you. And you make yourself better and you learn and you get better. And that's step by step. So instead of whining and complaining, I could have done all of that. And don't get me wrong, I did sometimes. But you just have to make those times shorter,
And those days that you can't get up, do you have those days where you've got to really lift everything to soldier on? And how do you do that?
I used to tell my staff, don't call me and tell me I'm sick until you got up and had a shower. Because everyone wakes up with So when they'd call me and go, I'm not well, I'm going, did you have a shower yet? No. Okay, well, don't call me. I hung up and go down. I go have a shower first. And then when they have a shower, they're like, well, I might as well go.
I'm so using that toolkit. That is just the best.
It is. We all go through this. Like, it's not magic. Everyone kind of goes, how? It's not magic. You get up, you have that shower, you put on...
Use some soap.
That's it. Boys, you put the deodorant on, So, so you do what you have to do. You get up and you soldier on. That's life. You have to.
Yeah. And what advice would you give to your younger self?
Oh... I was so good looking.
Yeah. You still are. You're so beautiful.
Not quite the same. No. Remember we joke? Remember our joke? They used to
look at me and now they want to run me over. I love that.
What advice? That it's not always going to be that easy. When I say that easy, I'm not talking about life gets easy because you get more aware. But everything else, health. I'm talking about health, how you feel, energy. I think when you're younger, you're invincible. You think, the things I did, there's no way that I would do them today because I was invincible, I would kind of tell myself, I wouldn't stop myself from doing all those things, yes, but I would kind of remind myself not to waste my youth, and I did probably a lot of that.
Maybe take some more photographs of the beautiful
version. That's right. I've got a photo in my office and I just look at it.
Oh, the good young days.
That's it. So when we're having this, when you're showing this, can we just do some photos?
Photoshopping. Don't worry. Most people will just be listening anyway. So, well, Leah, you have been an absolute delight to have on the program today, and I know our listeners and watchers are so much better off having learned your words of wisdom. So a really big thank you to you, and wish you all the success in the world for PeopleEconomics. And thank you again for being on the program.
Thank you.
Thank you.